Representative Lauren Boebert had a chance to, use an anecdote to try to help average people be able to afford prescription drugs. Instead, she did this.
We've seen an increase in prices for medication and treatments over the past few years. You would agree?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that.
And I think that you all have elaborated as far as the why, and you're welcome to elaborate more if you'd like. But do you see that patients leave their prescriptions at pharmacies because they can no longer pay for it?
They absolutely do in my pharmacy, yes. That happens more than should make anyone comfortable.
I actually have a fun little story. My staff is probably going to talk to me about this later, but I left a prescription at a pharmacy once. I went to get birth control. And I was there at the counter and went to pay for it, and the price was very, very high. I said, wow, is this a 3-6-month prescription? No, ma'am, this is 1 month. And I said, it's cheaper to have a kid. And I left it there, and now I have my third son, Caden Boebert. And so it turned out to be a really great thing. But I personally experienced that when times were tough. But thank you so much for your indulgence there. And
It's not like they really had a choice. Wow. No, okay, so before I get to making fun of her, and her wildly ridiculous comment, I'm actually going to point out something a point that she brings out that is correct. Yes, the price of medication is incredibly high, and it's unacceptable. And in reality, I actually think this hearing was a fantastic hearing, what I've watched of it. And so, yes, we're talking about the massive increase in the prices of prescription drugs, which affect everyday people for medications they need to survive. What a wonderful topic. Now, unfortunately, as you saw, Boebert goes into saying ridiculous things. Now, that said, let's get into the facts. Now, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, 1,200 drugs exceeded inflation between July of 2021 and July of 2022, including many drugs used to treat cancer and other chronic conditions. The increases on these drugs averaged about 31.6%. Again, that's just 1 year. Wow. According to a research letter in the Journal of American Medical Association, the launch prices of new brand name drugs increased by nearly 11% every year from 2008 through 2021. That is 11% every single year on these drugs. Median drug prices for a year's supply increased from $2,115 in 2008 to more than $180,000 in 2021. That is massively above inflation. Now, a lot of the increases are from specialty drugs. So, and these specialty drugs, of course, are patented by the companies that put this out. So when the company has a patent, that means you cannot have generics. So they have sole ownership of the patent on this drug, which means they don't have any competition. And they will sit on these patents for decades, not just years, but decades, and make as much profit as they can from these drugs that people need. So now, according to a report, the average annual price of specialty drugs has tripled over the last 10 years from nearly $18,000 to more than $52,000 today. So now the obvious thing here is, okay, well, there's two different things that they could actually do. For one, allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. I think that's just an incredibly smart plan overall. Now, the other solution here is to fix our patent system so that you don't have these companies that sit there and patent a drug for the next 100 years. Should some companies have a patent for a few years if they actually did the investment in research and development? It's negotiable, right? Along with the price. I mean, if a drug is paid for by the taxpayer through university research and development, then I think that you should not have a patent right off the bat. Hell no. But if there is a company that comes out there with a very specific patent, maybe have it for 5 years and then allow them to go generic, while again, forcing that company to negotiate with Medicare for that drug to have a decent price, one that yeah, sure, they can make some of their, they can make their little bit of profit and their research and development funds back, but also have it be affordable to the people who actually need it. And they can afford to do that. Now, that said, there's, oh, and by the way, if you fix the patent system, that also helps with competition, which is supposed to be a free market, but it's not. Now, that said, Boebert brings up this very important point, this very important hearing, right? Has she actually introduced or co-sponsored or voted on any bills that tried to bring down the cost of prescription drugs? So I was very interested in seeing, okay, oh, wow, well, she's at this hearing, she brings up this anecdote. So she's had personal experience with the cost of prescription drugs. I think a lot of people, most people have. And so has she done anything or advanced anything that would help ease the burden for the average person? No. I went through her voting records. I have not seen anything that Boebert has voted on or introduced that helps reduce the price of prescription drugs. In fact, like the vast majority of her bills that she has sponsored, co-sponsored, are things like protect the Second Amendment and target trans people. Wow. So yeah, there it is. In fact, there was one bill that would have actually helped a little bit, or that did actually help a little bit, called the Inflation Reduction Act. So now I say that it's a weak bill because it doesn't go far enough, especially on negotiating prescription drugs. I think there's like 10 medications that Medicare is now allowed to negotiate on with the drug companies. That's ridiculous. It's super, super weak. Even that, though, was too much for Lauren Boebert, who railed against it. Boebert thought it went too far. And when Boebert was running for office, she said that she wanted to get rid of Obamacare and make healthcare, quote, more free market-based. But wait, that's what we have now. Kind of. Because what starts out as the whole idea of a free market never actually turns into a free market, because you end up with no regulations on businesses. They will just consolidate. That's what happens. They consolidate their business, and then they create monopolies. That's what happens here. So there can be no mythical free market. There has to be some sort of regulation. There has to be some sort of way to encourage competition and to discourage these companies from merging into giant mega corporations that will then sit on patents for hundreds of years, which is a system that we have now. So anyway, now let's get to the stupid. And that's her talking about birth control. Well, it costs less to have a kid than on birth control. Really? Does it? Are you sure? Let me give you some numbers here. The average cost of childbirth in 2023 is $18,865. That's just the flat cost. If you have insurance, then, well, the cost goes down significantly. But still, on average, a person would have to pay out of pocket to give birth in this country $2,854. That's your copay. What about raising children? Remember, this is just having them. This is just pushing it out. Okay? And that, by the way, if you're just lucky enough to just have to push it out, it's $2,854 or $18,000. It can cost up to, well, a lot more if there are complications or if there's a C-section. Gets rather expensive there. All right. Now, it's not just that, though. It's also raising them. Now, another study found that raising a child in the United States can cost up to $30,000 a year. This doesn't include, by the way, the cost of education. Now, that's, again, the average, right? Now, in cheaper places, you might be able to get by with $14,000 a year to raise a child. That's how much it costs. Again, the cheapest areas in the country, which often have the lower standards of living or lowest standards of living. So those are the numbers on how expensive it is to have and raise a child. What about birth control? So now, let's look at the numbers on that. Now, the common oral contraception pill costs anywhere from nothing, if your insurance covers it. Again, if as long as there is a contraception mandate. Oh, right, there isn't a contraception mandate. No, it's anywhere from free if your insurance covers it to $50 a month. So that averages around $240 to $600 a year for the oral contraceptive pill. All right, well, that's a cost. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to more expensive forms of birth control, like implants, such as Nexplanon and Implanon. They cost over $800 each. Okay. Now, you also have IUDs, intrauterine devices, such as Mirena and Paragard. Those cost over $1,000 each. Now, that said, you can have that IUD in for multiple years. Okay. Now, the $60 Depo-Provera shot comes in at a total of about $240 a year when accounting for follow-up injections every 3 months. There's also the $100 plus NuvaRing, which comes in a total of $1,000 a year when factoring in the 5-week turnover rate. Now, none of that, by the way, includes contraceptive counseling appointments that you have to pay for. And so, now, is it expensive? Yeah, birth control actually is kind of expensive when you think about it. Other than condoms, which are very, very, very inexpensive. So there is that. But I was just talking about, female contraception. And again, condoms are incredibly cheap. Vasectomies can still run you, a decent amount of money, but also in the long run, compared to the invasiveness and compared to, the possible side effects of female contraception, a vasectomy would ultimately be cheaper, less invasive, and pretty much guaranteed. Okay, the best option. Again, just to avoid pregnancy, right? That's it. If you don't have insurance, which I'm assuming Boebert was talking about at the time, well then yes, it can get kind of expensive. If you're low income, your options are fairly limited. Now, again, as I said, condoms do work. They are effective for the most part, but there are some people who are allergic to latex and they can break, and there is that can cause pregnancy, but generally pretty effective. I don't know Lauren Boebert's situation. I'm afraid to ask. I don't really want to know, but overall, just when you look at the math, just how it all adds up, Boebert's math is not good. It's not good at all. Okay? It still costs far less in the United States for birth control than it is to have a child. And that's, again, having a child in America is incredibly expensive. The government does not care about helping parents, especially when you compare us to European countries. They have months of paid family leave, maternity leave, paternity leave in some countries. We don't have any. We have no guaranteed paid leave. They have free or cheap childcare. We do not. We have expensive childcare. They have universal health care. That covers things like prenatal care. That covers things like pregnancy costs and births. We do not in this country. Now, that same lack of universal health care in America, also makes it so that these different forms of contraception are not affordable or available to everyone. So it's a double whammy if you're poor. Now, Lauren's story could have actually been used to point out these different points and to say, hey, you know what? Maybe that's why we should look into some solutions like universal health care and allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices and, deal with patents. And I watched a little bit of that hearing. As I said before, it was a decent hearing. And the witnesses did mention, like, hey, we got greed, pharmaceutical greed, and we've got these patent trolls. She's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, we need to find something that we can work together on. But I can guarantee you anything that comes out of Lauren Boebert, I'd be very, very surprised if she put out anything or co-sponsored or signed on to anything that would solve the actual problems. But again, this could have been used as a good example of why we need Medicare for all, why we need these things, why we do need to fix our prescription drug pricing. But unfortunately, her funny little anecdote had pretty much no point, no bearing on this hearing at all, and very, very likely, in my mind, that she's going to continue to oppose the very types of policies that would have helped her back in her position.